everyone, it's Kelly here. Welcome to my channel if this is your first time. Welcome back if you've been before. Lovely to have you either way. On this channel we talk books, and today I am recording a tag video. I don't do a lot of tag videos, but I like to do these little check-in tags, including this one, which is the quarter year crisis tag, and it was originally created by Roisin at Roisin's Reading, and I will tag her channel down in the description if you want to go and have a look and see her own take on this tag that she created. So thank you, Roisin, for the tag. I like to do these quarterly check-ins because it just sort of helps me to see where I'm at, refocus if I need to refocus, what goals am I neglecting, etc, etc. So yeah, and also like celebrate the successes, and so far this year I think I've had a pretty successful reading quarter. So the first question in the tag is, how many books have you read so far? And excitingly, that number is 17. I have read quite a lot of books in March, which has really push my numbers up. So I'm actually going to tell you what all of the books are that I've read and give you an update on my pin pennant. So earlier this year you may have seen, I can't remember which video I talked about it in. It would probably have been my wrap up for January, to be honest, but I decided that I would try to acquire or use a pin that I already had to represent each of the books that I read this year. So at the moment my pin pennant has 17 pins on it, and I'm going to show them to you now and tell you what all the books are. So they go across like this. Okay, so we have To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf, Best of Australian Poems 2025, edited by Nam Lee and Jill Jones, Great Writers and the Cats Who Owned Them, so we're up to here, by Susanna Fullerton, Monster Field by Lucy Duggan, The Invisible Intruder by which is a Nancy Drew book by Carolyn Keane. We've got, so that's January, then on to February, and Every Morning the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer by Frederick Backman. And then She Ate Him by Tom Denby. And then On Violence by Hannah Arendt. And then down on the second row, Rock Flight by Hasib Hurani. Three Apples Fell from the Sky by Noreen Abgarian, translated by Lisa C. Hayden. And then on to March, we have Dusk. No, what have I missed? Three. Uh-oh, what have I done? I've got these in the wrong order. Okay, we should have Dusk first. That was the spot for Dusk. Then these letters end in T. So I've just accidentally put these in the wrong spots. Okay, I can fix that. So that should be Dusk. Then These Letters End in Tears by Musi Taji Javier maybe. Women Without Men, that's the girl power one, by Shanush Pasapur, translated by Faridun Farouk. Lolly Willowes by Sylvia Townsend Warner. Memorial Days by Geraldine Brooks, Creation Lake by Rachel Kushner, and then just last night I finished Contra by Eunice Andrada, which is a poetry collection. So 17 pins to represent the 17 books that I have read so far this year, and I'm enjoying this little project. It's fun. Okay, then so yeah, that's how many books I've read so far this year. Question 2. Have you already found a book you think might be your 2026 favourite? If not, what's the best book you've read so far this year? I think it's a little early to be calling a favourite, but I've only had 2 5-star reads so far this year, and of those 2, the one that I prefer is Dusk by Robbie Arnott. This is a book I finished in March, and it's about a puma, hence the puma pin. It's about a puma that is living, so pumas are not native to Australia, but in Tasmania, I forget the circumstances by which the puma ended up in the Highlands, but it's there, and it is now killing people and sheep and stuff. So there's a bounty to try and get rid of this puma. And we follow a twin brother and sister, and this is set in the past. I would say probably like mid-colonial days, the early colonizing period of Australia. And they have a bit of a shady past, and but they are just trying to survive, and that proves to be tricky for them. Anyway, they decide to try their luck at finding and killing this puma, and events ensue from that point. Anyway, I thought it was excellent, so yeah, that has been my favourite read so far this year. Okay, any 1-star books or least favourite book of the year? I don't have any 1-star books, and I would hope that I don't have any, because I would hope that I would have the sense to DNF before I got to, like, usually if a book is a 1-star book, it's not going to be like surprisingly 1-star by the end. Like, you know pretty early on that it's going to be a 1-star book, unless something really terrible happens, I guess. But anyway, I don't have any of those. The lowest I've rated anything I've read so far this year is 3 stars. And when I thought about all of those, the one that I liked the least was this one, On Violence by Hannah Arendt. This was, I read this one in February, and it's one that I mostly got along with, except that there were some points at which there was racism, and it was really jarring for the ideas that were being discussed for there also to be racism present. So that was, yeah, probably my least favourite book that I've read this year. Okay, the less said about that, the better. Number 4, most read genre so far. It's actually a tie. I had a look on Storygraph, and literary fiction, unsurprisingly, 5 books were tagged with that out of all of the 17 that I've read, but also poetry, 5 books tagged. So I've got 2 competing most read genres so far. Neither of those are particularly surprising. I have really leaned into the poetry this year, I have to say. So it's surprising compared to other years. Not that I haven't read poetry, but not quite as much. But I assume that as the the year goes on, the poetry will probably go below literary. Literary is usually my most read genre. Okay, a book that surprised you. Okay, again, I'm going to choose a book that I haven't wrapped up yet because I read it in March, and that is Willowes by Sylvia, Townsend, Warner. However, I did read this for a vlog, so I will link the vlog up in the cards and also down in the description below if I remember. But this book was surprising, not in that I enjoyed it. I was expecting to enjoy it, but it was surprising in a turn that it took. Again, somewhat expected, because I had heard that this ended up being a bit of a witchy book, but the direction of witchy that it goes is quite surprising, especially for the period in which it's set. So, yeah, definitely a surprising book, but I did like it. Okay, a book that has come out in 2026 already that you want to read but haven't yet. I don't think I have purchased any books yet that have already been published in 2026. So there's nothing, as far as I know, on my shelf that is a 2026 publication. There's definitely a few that were like late 2025, but I don't think any of them have been published in 2026 yet. So nothing there. And then I was thinking about it and like thinking about books that I've been seeing on the shelves in bookstores. Not that, because I've been a little bit avoiding going to the bookstore because I have too many books. Lol. story of my life. I have too many books that I already want to read, so I'm trying not to buy too many. I'm trying to be very intentional about my purchasing, is what I'm trying to say. I have definitely bought books, too many books already this year, but anyway, that's by the by. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is there's nothing that I can think of. I presume that there is something, but I just can't think of anything at the moment, so I can't really answer that question, unfortunately. All right, number 7, a book that's coming out later in 2026 that you want to read. Now, I had to do a little bit of investigating because this is not something I'm necessarily across. I just sort of see, sometimes I hear about things coming out, and then other times, most of the time, I'm pretty oblivious to what's happening, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, this person has a new book, that's exciting. So, in my investigating, I found an article that was put out by The Guardian at the end of last year talking about anticipated books for 2026 from Australian writers, which I try to read quite a lot of Australian writers. Obviously, from my accent, you can tell I'm Australian. I live in Australia. I try to read a lot of Australian writers, especially literary fiction. And in that article, 4 authors that I have read and enjoyed were listed there as having books coming out. So there's one that's coming out right at the end of March, so at the time of recording it hasn't yet come out, and it is by Michael Winkler, who wrote a really great book called Grimmish that I read 2 or 3 years ago. It was self-published at the time, and it got longlisted, possibly shortlisted as well, for the Miles Franklin Award, which is a big literary prize here in Australia. Anyway, I really enjoyed that book, and he has a new book coming out called Griefdogg on March 31. He's published by Text Publishing, so congratulations to him for getting a publishing deal. Also, Amanda Lohrey, who wrote The Labyrinth and The Conversion, that I read also. The Labyrinth won Miles Franklin, I think, or maybe the Stella, one of those, a few years back. Anyhow, I've read and enjoyed her two of her books. She has a new book coming out on April 28th called Capture, also published by Text Publishing. So that's exciting. Then also in April, same day possibly, I've got a question mark next to it, because the article said May, but on the website for University of Queensland Press, who are her publisher, it said ships April 28. So I'm assuming that's the publishing date. But this is Angela O'Keeffe, and I read a book by her called The Sitter last year, which was nominated for the Miles Franklin Award 2 years ago maybe. I've quite enjoyed The Sitter. She has another one coming out called Phantom Days, so that's exciting. And then much later this year, possibly in October, Kate Grenville, who I've read Unsettled and Restless Dolly Maunder from, has another book called Currabubula coming out, and she's published by Black Ink. So Currabubula is a place name, and it's the place where Dolly Maunder, who is her... based on her actual ancestor, I think it's her grandmother, was born. So she was born in Currabubula. So I'm guessing that this is kind of continuing on the themes that she's been writing about in recent years. So anyway, that's exciting. So I'm excited about those books coming out in 2026, and I'll be keeping an eye on them. Whether I get to them or not in 2026 is another matter, but we'll see. We'll see. I'll definitely be keeping an eye out for them in the bookstore. Okay, one goal that you made that you're succeeding at. So this is question number 8, and I would say, so I have only a couple of goals, which I will read out to you. I try and keep things simple. Read at least 52 books. I'm going pretty well on that, having read 17. Read at least 10 ebooks. Going very poorly. I've read 1. Read the Stella Prize. Going quite well, and partly that's because when the Stella Prize list was announced, I had already read 2 of them. So I'm now up to 4. But I'm making progress and I'm moving along, and I've also just started another one of that list. I'm really excited about the list, and I think that's helping me to kind of keep going with reading the Stella Prize books. And then make progress on 5 series is my other goal. That one I'm not doing as well with, but yeah, you can see in my journal I have already ticked 4 of my Stella Prizes, so that's exciting. The shortlist for that one comes out on the 8th of April, so I'm very much looking forward to seeing which books make it, and I'm hoping to have read at least a couple more of them by the time that date rolls around. Okay, question number 9. What one goal you made that you need to focus on? I think this the making progress in the series goal is probably the one I need to focus on, because I haven't made any progress with that at all. I think with the ebooks, there'll be a couple of, I've got a few things lined up that I'm going to read in ebook format. So like progress is kind of slowly happening on that goal, which if you've been around for a while and you've heard me reflecting on my goals at the end of the year, I make that goal every year and I never meet it. So we'll see how that goes. But the series goal is kind of new, and I've made no progress on that so far. I don't think I've read any series books yet. Is that correct? Am I correct in that assessment? Let's have a look. I mean, technically I read a Nancy Drew book, but I'm not actually actively trying to read the Nancy Drew series, so I'm not really going to count that one. Yeah, none. I have read no series that I'm actively working on, which I definitely want to change. I have a Brother Cadfael book that I've been attempting to read for some time now, and I really need to get onto that. I've got a couple of other series that I would really like to make some progress on too. So I think that's the goal that I want to focus on in this next, maybe not in this next quarter to be honest, because we're in prize season at the moment, and I've got my Stella goal. I would like to try and read all of the Stella books if I can by the time the winner is announced. So that is my overarching goal of what I'd like to get done for that goal. So if I can kind of get that one done, then I can focus back on my other goals. That's the plan. We'll see how we do. Okay, and the final question is, new to you Booktubers or Bookstagrammers or BookTokers for 2026 that you recommend. So I went through my list of Booktubers that I'm following, like just on my following list, and there weren't too many newer ones that I had added on since the last time I spoke about this, which probably would have been halfway through last year, because I'm pretty sure there's a question. It was either when I did this tag last year or the halfway through the year tag that I do. Would have been the last time I spoke about other booktubers. So I've got 2 that I don't think I've mentioned before on the channel that I started following more recently. So one is Paperbacks and Daisies. So that's Gabby. She's Australian at the moment, based in Melbourne, but I think she's about to move possibly to, saying to the country, so I'm guessing that's country Victoria, but it might be part of another state, I'm not sure. But she's basically been based in Melbourne, and she reads a lot of different kinds of books, but a lot of literary fiction, a lot of Australian fiction. Yeah, she's her channel is very lovely and cozy. So I have really enjoyed watching her videos recently. And then another one that is relatively new to me is Vanisha Marie, who is, I believe, a German booktuber, and she predominantly reads classics. So and she speaks really beautifully and enthusiastically about the classics that she reads, and makes me excited to read classics. So yeah, I have really loved watching their 2 channels recently. So I will link both of their channels down in the description if you want to go and have a look if you haven't come across them before and are interested in finding some new Booktubers to add to your list. Okay, that's it. That is the tag. Thank you very much for watching. I am not going to tag anyone specifically to do this tag, but if you are interested in doing the tag, do it. Just do it. You don't have to wait for permission. Have permission. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I will catch you again on the next one. Bye.